Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Jeffrey Powers here. Welcome to the show we call Geek Smack, the show where we smack the geek out of you like Apple might be smacking the Intel and saying, "Hey, you're out of here. We don't want you anymore. We don't. It's not working anymore." So anyway, my name is Jeffrey Powers. Thanks a lot for coming to the show. If the first time you've come to the show, thank you very much. We're brought to you by our friends over at Wirecast. Go over to geekazine.com/Wirecast PC for the PC version or Wirecast Mac for the Mac version and get that on there. All right, we got a big show. We got a great show, and I'm going to tell you, it's also the 5th anniversary of Geekazine, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But first of all, let's get you into the show. Let's do it. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this is take two with Geekazine and Geek Smack, where we smack the geek out of you like, I don't know, Ford Field Legos. Lego for we'll talk about that on the geek side. But first of all, how you been doing? If this is the first time that you've come to the show, thank you very much. You are on a very special episode. Tomorrow will be the seventh of November, and with that will be the fifth year of Geekazine. Geekazine will actually be 5 years old tomorrow, November 7th of 2012. Of course, I'm planning to actually do something when I get back from 2 weeks. Next week, no show. I'll be in Boise, Idaho for an event, and then the following week I will be back, and we will have season 6 of Geekazine. Of course, you'll see the website; it's there. The podcast actually started a month prior to Geekazine. Didn't have a name to it, and it was just the show at that time, and then it became the Geekazine Weekly Podcast, and now it's Geek Smack, which is your weekly Geek Smack. So, thanks a lot for coming. If you've come all 5 years, thank you very, very much for being a part of Geekazine. Let me know who you are by twittering me over at Geekazine. Of course, geekazine at gmail.com is the email address, and we do have the hotline of 608-205-4378. I record this on Tuesday for Wednesday consumption, like I normally say. Since today is actually election day in the United States, I actually voted like 2 weeks prior because I have this show and I have 3 other shows I need to produce. I just didn't have time to go out and vote. I voted. I hope you did too, and we won't get too political on that. I was at the rally yesterday. President Obama did have a rally here yesterday, and of course Bruce Springsteen was there, and I was kind of conflicted. It's like, do I go to see Bruce Springsteen or do I stay at home? So I saw Bruce Springsteen. He pulled out a great song, political song, which I tried to record, but I guess I didn't hit the button right or something. I don't know. Bottom line is I didn't get it, which really sucks because it was a great, great song. Whether political stuff aside, it was a great song. It was called Forward. So, yeah, I can't believe I did that. Otherwise, it would have been all over the political websites today. But hey, what can you do? Hey, our CES action is happening. If you don't know, every year I go out with some other podcasters, Todd Cochran, Andy McCaskey, and a whole host of other people, and we report on the Consumer Electronics Show. We do it every single January. We have a lot of fun doing it. This year we've got a primo spot in our live stream as we're in North Hall, which North Hall is usually where the innovation is. We're going to be just outside of that, and we're going to have traffic coming back and forth, up and down and all around. And I hope that if you go to CES, come by and stop and say hi, because our booth is just going to be right there. And it's going to be awesome. We had a nice planning meeting on Saturday, talked about how we're going to set up the booth and what we need to do for this year. So, bottom line is, we can always use some extra help. So if you can't help in blogging, if you can't help by getting the word out, please go ahead and donate some money. Just you can PayPal it to geekazine at gmail.com, geekazine at gmail.com, and just let me know that it's for CES, and I'll throw it in the CES pot. The more money we have, the better. We can rent some more stuff. We can do some more things, and make this a very successful CES action. So. One more thing. Hey, thank you very much for everybody who nominated for Geekazine for Best Produced. I really appreciate it. If you go over to podcastawards.com, you can now vote. You have until November 15th, and you can vote every single day. So please go over to Podcast Awards for Geekazine for Best Produced and Day in Tech History for Educational. All right, ladies and gentlemen, one more thing. Fill out that survey over at geekazine.com/survey. And that's pretty much it. Let's get into, because I had to do this. This is the second time around. Let's get into your Geek Smack, Tech Smack. Why did that just do that? Let's do that. There we go. Let's get into your Tech Smack for today. All right. And, of course, the Tech Smack is brought to you by our friends GoToMeeting over at gotomeeting.com. And, meetings are essential to the way that we work. You have to have a meeting. You just have to. It's an opportunity to share your ideas. It's an opportunity to problem solve or develop a creative solution. And meeting with your team that's spread out all around it just doesn't work unless you have GoToMeeting with HD faces. It's a powerfully simple way to meet and collaborate online. We had our CES planning meeting, which happened on GoToMeeting. Everybody got up on the video conference. I was actually driving to an event, and so I actually got up on the phone number and called in, put my earbuds in, driving while I was listening to the meeting. I could participate that way, so I didn't miss a meeting. We talked about a lot of things. I got my 2 cents worth in there, and we had a pretty successful meeting on that. So you can meet any way, any shape you need to, no matter where anyone is located. GoToMeeting will let you share the same screen, making it easier to be on that same page. And with the HD video conferencing service, you can see each other face to face, so you can meet eye to eye. Whether it be a Mac, whether it be a PC, whether it be a tablet or an iPhone, you can be part of a meeting. But the best part is now you can join a meeting not only from your Mac, not only from your PC, but from your iPad as well. You can stop and say, hey, I need to start a meeting. You can set up a meeting, send out an email, all in your car, on your iPad if you're in a coffee shop or whatever, and you get that meeting going, you get it done, and you get things resolved. And that's the cool thing. Put it into your business toolbox. Try GoToMeeting for free for 30 days. For this special offer, visit gotomeeting.com. Click that Try It Free Now button. That's that orange button. Enter in the code PODCAST. Podcast helps Geek Smack. Podcast also gets you 30 days of that great software. So remember, use that promo code PODCAST for GoToMeeting. Meeting is believing. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's start with your Geek Smack for this week, the Tech Smack, the Geek Smack of the Tech Geek of this week. We're going to start over at, just realized something. Let's do this. We're going to start over at bbc.co.uk. Netflix says that they're taking a poison pill to ward off Icon. I can't. I don't know. Carl Icahn is his real name. Carl Icahn basically said that he wants to buy into Netflix to do a hostile takeover. And so Netflix, what they decided to do is, well, they implemented a little caveat that says if anybody buys 10% of the company in stock, that they're going to dilute it by pulling out a whole bunch of new shares. So I could buy 10% of the stock right now. And stock is what, $30, $25 or something like that. And I buy 10% of the company. All of a sudden, they send out a whole bunch of new shares, and my $30 basically will knock down to $10, $5, whatever, because people will start selling off their shares because it's like, wait, there's more shares out there. It's not worth it. They're basically putting a nail in their coffin, and whether Carl Icahn comes in and tears apart the company, or whether they put the nail in the coffin and nobody gets the company, I guess that's the way they have. And so I plead to you guys, if you have, let me do this. Let me get to the plead cam here. This is the plead cam. If you have Netflix, get off of Netflix. Forget Netflix. They don't care about you. Simple as that. And read this article, bbc.co.uk. We're going to have it in the show notes. Netflix is, I understand that they don't want Carl Icahn to come in here and rip apart the company. But by doing this, they're ripping apart their own company. And they don't care about the stockholders. They don't care about the customers. They only care about what they think is good for the company, the wrong things that are good for the company. And so Netflix, that's just further proof that they don't care, that they're just they don't get it. So I've been off of Netflix for a long time. My girlfriend, she has Netflix, and I'm going to show her this, and I'm going to say, hey, look, why why do we still have Netflix? And she'll still say, well, because of the TV shows. Well, it's going to get a lot harder to get new TV shows if you have no money to get new TV shows. I don't know. What do you think? Are you going to stick on Netflix? Read this article and tell me if you are. And then Twitter me at Geekazine, of course, geekazine at gmail.com, and then the hotline number, which is right there, 608-205-4378. All right. Enough of that. Let's move on from there. We're going over to TheVerge.com. AT&T has announced the Nokia Lumia 920 and 820 models with the Windows 8. They launch on November 9th for $49 for the 820 and $99 for the 920. You can check that out over at TheVerge.com. Sticking on there, we're also talking about Microsoft and how they're retiring Windows Live Messenger for the favor of Skype. Poof, like that. And so basically, of course, they own Skype, so it makes sense. Get rid of one for the other. Nobody's using, they're using Skype more than they're using Live Messenger. So kill Live Messenger, bring all your customers over to Skype, integrate any technology that needs to integrate, and make Skype better. Simple as that. So if you want to read more on that, go over to TheVerge.com and check that out. All right, moving from there, we're going over to Tom'sHardware.com. Mozilla has settled with the IRS. Apparently, they were in a lawsuit with the IRS over taxes, and they finally, this is like 4 years that they've been going back and forth. Finally, they agreed to pay the IRS $1.5 million and to continue on, to keep going. Apparently, $15 million in funds were frozen to cover any outcome of the investigation, so they'll have some extra money they'll be able to push forward. So maybe this complacency of Mozilla was all simply because of the fact that they wanted to see the outcome of this IRS suit, and now that they've done that, they'll actually go forward and be a competing browser again. I don't know. I don't. Do you like I stopped using Firefox a long time ago, and I really wish that Firefox, it had a lot of great stuff in it. I really wish that Firefox would kind of get back in the game. So we'll see what happens with the Mozilla Foundation. Of course, they also retired Thunderbird, which I liked, and there was. I guess I just haven't seen too much innovation from Mozilla lately. So we'll see what happens here. And if you want to read more on that, go over to tomshardware.co.uk. Going over to TechCrunch, Google is rolling out new features to keep the community safe. They've added some new Hangout features and some new blocking features. So if you see any problems, you basically report it, and it's gonna work a little bit better for you. I'm noticing on the camera. The first time I actually did this show twice now. The first time I did it, I noticed that the face tracking features were showing up on screen. And on the little LCD screen, but then on the screen. So all of a sudden you saw this face tracking feature go back and forth. Well, now the GPS, I must have enabled the GPS functionality of this Sony camera. This is the 260V, the HDR HX260V, which is the 160 gigabyte hard drive. And I must have enabled the GPS tracking feature because it's turning on, and I guess it's trying to find a location, which is pretty cool. So it's telling people that, hey, he's using the camera right now. Is what it is. I don't really care. Anyway, if you want to read more on this, go to TechCrunch. We got the link in the show notes. That not about the GPS thing, but about the about Google Plus. So, all right, let's move on from there. Let's go over to SlashGear, Microsoft Surface. Now this is kind of diluting. This is kind of upsetting. Microsoft Surface started at 32 gigabytes, and I thought, hey, that's great. You're going to have 32 gigabytes. They're going to get rid of 16 gigabytes. That's great. The only problem is 16 gigabytes is being used for Windows 8 RT, which means that you only have 16 gigabytes on your Surface tablet. And a lot of people are complaining. They say, well, if that means it's the 16 gigabyte device. You should have said 16 gigabytes to begin with because that's all we can use. Now, a 64 gigabyte model, that means there's 48 gigabytes that you can use, which neither here nor there. It's not 64. And that's a big black eye on Microsoft's eye. Poof, like that. I think that they should have just said, hey, 16 gigabytes usable, and 30 and 48. So we had 16 and 48, and you could go from there. But they didn't. They just said 32 and 64. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see if it comes back. There could be repercussions on this, and definitely, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody tries a class action lawsuit because it's not exactly what they said it was going to be. What do you think? Did you get the Surface RT this last week? I didn't. I'm waiting for that i5. But let me know if you liked it, if you didn't like it. Geekazine is the Twitter handle. Geekazine at gmail.com is the email address. A couple more articles in the tech area, and we're going to go over to Mashable.com for this. Amazon is now really competing with Netflix, and like I said, I'm not a fan of Netflix. If you want to try a better service, go over to Amazon, period. And I got a link over at Geekazine. You can go to Amazon from there, and of course that gives Geekazine credit. But now they want to go, before it was a membership was $80 for the year, and I highly encourage you to do the $80. Now they've got a new price point, $7.99 monthly option that they're rolling out. I don't know if it's out to everybody just yet, but it is getting rolled out to people as they go. And the whole idea is that you'll be able to get instant streaming, Kindle books. We have to have a Kindle reader for the Kindle books. Just remember that. And then, of course, free 2-day shipping. So you can buy all your Christmas presents and get them within 2 days. So that's kind of cool. But it's 100 times better than what Netflix has to offer, and a great solution. And if you don't want to buy a year, you want to buy month to month, $7.99. So if you want to check it out, go over to Mashable.com. Of course, go over to Amazon.com. Go to Geekazine.com. Click on the Amazon link, and of course, that'll give me credit. All right, let's move on from there. We're going back over to Tom's Hardware. For the first time ever, iPhone owner loyalty has declined. They basically polled, and they said that a study that found 88% of U.S. iPhone owners were likely to get another Apple smartphone went down 5% from the last time they did this, which was 93%, and that was last year. So it's decreasing. They're seeing with the flood of different tablets and different smartphones that they might not want an iPhone 6. They might not want an iPhone 7. I can tell you, I like my iPhone 5. I really do. But the one thing I don't like about it is the screen. It's just too small. I don't like the size of that screen. And a lot of people, if there was a wider version, even Steve Wozniak said, if there was a wider version, it would be the best thing in the world. So will there be an iPhone 5.5 coming out soon, or a 6th generation iPhone where they'll have a little bit wider screen? I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'll still have to deal with my iPhone 5 with the thinner screen. But, hey, if I know that I can get an iPhone 7 that's going to have a wider screen, I'll stick with iPhone. Something to heed, because, they're coming out with all these new tablets, new smartphones, new devices that you can do the same thing like iPhone. You won't have the apps like in the iPhone store, but if the Surface tablet, for example, gets really popular, they're going to have apps in the Surface store. Simple as that. So anyway, read more on that. Go over to tomshardware.com for that. All right, last article of the tech side. We're over at geekwire.com. Microsoft, for some of the voting booths, some of the booths were actually using Microsoft Surface, and this was in Virginia. So basically, you go up to the booth, and instead of having a paper ballot, you just went on to a Microsoft Surface. I'll show you the picture here. You go to the Microsoft Surface tablet, and then you make your votes. Now, first of all, I want to let you guys know, if you do vote, you should not take a picture of your ballot and put it on Facebook or Twitter, because that's a Class 1 felony. Don't do that. But if you want to try with Surface, you'll have to be in Virginia. And I think that they also give you an option if you don't want to vote using electronics, that they'll give you a paper ballot to choose from. But they're testing this, and they're using it in this thing called Democracy Live, which is based in Washington, and they're seeing if it works. Eventually, that's the way we're going to go, electronic. It's so far we've not gone that far simply because of the impact of the voting. But eventually, it's going to go to computers, and we're not going to have paper ballots anymore. Does that scare you? Do you think that we shouldn't do that? Let me know. Twitter me at Geekazine, of course, geekazine@gmail.com. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, of course, we're going to talk about Apple possibly ditching Intel and making their own processors. We're going to do that. Of course, we got Geek Smack to get out of the way, and we're going to do that right after this. All right, and of course, sorry, I had to take a drink of water. Whew. Of course, we're brought to you by our friends over at Zag. And if you want to get protection for your smartphone, for your tablet, for your any type of device, they've got it. And we're even talking computers. We're talking laptops. You can drop your laptop just as easily as you can drop your iPad. I know I've dropped my iPad a few times. I've dropped my laptop once in the Detroit airport. And it was a long story, but basically there's a welt on the side of it. If I would have had a case, they probably would have protected it. I probably wouldn't have gotten the welt that I got. If I would have had the invisible shield, I probably wouldn't have gotten the small little ding that I got in my MacBook. And of course, things like that, they don't honor that over at the Apple Store. You've got to pay for a new monitor, and it's such a small ding, it doesn't really matter. But the whole point is that one day I could have a full crack on my monitor, and I have to go get a new monitor. Not going to be happy for that day, but want to protect it. Protect it with a screen. I saw somebody with an iPhone yesterday, and they had a piece of tape over the crack when they dropped their iPhone. Stuff like that does work, but get the invisible shield. Get your screen replaced. Put an invisible shield on it. Now with the Extreme Invisible Shield, they have more protection with warranties, and you can't go wrong. So check this out. Go over to geekazine.com/zag, geekazine.com/ZAGG. Of course, that helps Geek Smack. I thank you very much. And then at checkout, you can get things like this, the Zag Spark, which is a little device. You charge this up, and then when your smartphone or tablet needs to be recharged, you can plug into this. Don't have to even plug into a wall and keep going. 20% off by using that code Geekazine. Can't go wrong there. So check it out, geekazine.com/zag. All right, we're going to start over at Boing Boing because I love saying Boing Boing. You remember the old RoboCop, not the new RoboCop, but the old RoboCop. Peter Weller? Well, there's a nice little video over here showing how he is. He basically had an on-set interview as RoboCop, and he talks about that. So if you want to see how the old school RoboCop dealt with RoboCop, you can check that out over at boingboing.com. Moving on from there, we're going over to phys.org. International study suggests that there's a massive black hole in the Sword of Orion. I have the sword. There's a black hole. Anyway, I don't know. If you're a space geek, then you'll be really excited about this. The Orion Nebula has a star cluster at the center. There's a possible black hole that resides somewhere between the four bright stars that mark the center of the star cluster. So space geeks out there, check it out. Sword of Orion. There's a possible black hole. You can go there. Of course, go over to phys.org to check out the full article. All right, all you Lego geeks and Ford geeks, actually, car geeks, and football geeks for that matter. This is over at freep.com, freepress.com. And basically what it is a Lego design of Ford Field. It's not completed yet. So once they get it completed, it's going to be they're going to show it off. It's of course the home of the Detroit Lions, and I actually got to run on that field about 6 months ago, back in June, 5 months ago. And a pretty impressive place. Of course, they used It came from it's in an old industrial park, and so they used a lot of the storefronts in Ford Field. So there has a lot of Detroit history inside of Ford Field, and of course the football field, enclosed dome. Looks really nice. They used a lot of glass to bring the sunlight, natural sunlight in. So pretty impressive. Of course, this Lego build is also very impressive. So if you want to check it out, go over to freep.com. All right, moving on from there, going over to Dorkazine. Of course, you got to show off Dorkazine. I wrote an article on Thursday or Friday asking if cursive is dead. And that's basically because there's been a couple articles talking about school systems that have decided to go do away with writing, some with cursive, some with all together writing. Because we're on word processors, we're on computers. All you have to do is show them how to use a keyboard. Say that's the T key, that's the A key, that's the L key. Now you can write. Go ahead and write. You don't need to write using a pencil and a piece of paper. Of course, you won't be able to sign your name in cursive, which not a big deal. You won't be able to read the Declaration of Independence. I suppose that's not a big deal. Or any document after that between now and back in the 1600s when cursive was used. You'll have a hard time reading that, but who cares? Kind of sad. But is cursive dead? I mean, yeah, granted, I haven't written, besides my name, I haven't written anything in cursive for years until I actually just wrote that. Is cursive dead? That little image right there. But do you think that we should stop teaching it? Let me know. Tweet me at Geekazine, of course, geekazine@gmail.com. And check that out over at dorkazine.com. Going over to ThinkGeek, if you are looking for a cool little geek thing to get for somebody, maybe some slippers, Star Trek Tribble slippers. They even sound when you step on them, they go or whatever the little tribbles do. Something like that. I guess. I don't know. Two different colors, as you can see, a dark brown, a light brown. I suppose, I don't know if they come in different types of colors, if that's the two colors you get, or if you might get a gray one and a brown one or whatnot. But it's a one-size-fits-all. Oh, they purr. They don't do they go, or I don't know. I guess when you stroked them in the Tribble, they purred. So anyway, $24.99 too. So that's not too bad. Nice little Christmas gift right there for somebody. Yeah, Christmas is coming up. Hanukkah's coming up. Thanksgiving's coming up. Giving Jeffrey Powers the Geekazine a present because you just want to is coming up every day. So check that out over at thinkgeek.com. Moving from there, we're going over to device.com. Oh my God, if this 3D printer could actually print real bacon, this would be awesome. But they decided to go with something different. And they call it the Infinite Bacon. It's an infinite loop 3D model of bacon. So you turn it around and you turn it around. It just doesn't quit. The only problem is you can't fry it up. Put it in a pan, it's just going to melt. Sorry. And when are they going to make food 3D print? Wouldn't that be cool? You get like a certain type of candy, and you can put in different flavors like cherry or blueberry or something like that. And then you can make candy on the 3D printer, and then have it. Here's the 3D candy bacon. Wouldn't that be cool? Now I've put that in somebody's head. Hopefully, that will be cool. So check that out over at device.com. For all you bacon fans, now you can bring home the bacon using your 3D printer. Pretty cool. All right, moving on from there, we're going over to Gizmodo. Apparently, if you have a dog and you throw food in the dish, they can eat really fast. Just like you eat fast, you eat dinner, you just chow it down, you get sick. A dog will do the same thing. So over at Gizmodo.com, they created what's called, well, they Gizmodoed in, but somebody created this thing called the Spike Bowl. And the idea of the Spike Bowl is to separate the food so that the dog has to actually move around and eat a little bit slower as he or she's trying to pick up food. So pretty cool stuff there. If your dog does eat too fast, you might want to watch that because then, you don't want them to throw up all over the house, right? And that's why you do something like that. So check it out. It's the Spike Bowl from Gizmodo, and that's over at Gizmodo. Well, not from Gizmodo. It's showing on Gizmodo.com. Blah, blah, blah. I'd better be done with this. Oh, yeah, I am. Hey, we're at the end of the Geek Smack section. What'd you think? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Let me know. Twitter me at Geekazine. Geekazine at gmail.com. And then, of course, 608-205-4378 is the phone number. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Apple might be ditching Intel. And I don't know, is that a good thing or a bad thing? We're going to talk about that, and we're going to do that next. So stick around. You know, Geekazine is over on Stitcher Internet Radio, and it's great. I actually was listening to Stitcher. I always listen to it before the podcasts. I go to the coffee shop and I turn on Stitcher and I listen to the other tech podcasts out there to see what's going on with news for the day. And then I put together my list of stories, sometimes finding things through what they're talking about, sometimes finding stuff on my own. But I listen to a lot of different podcasts, including Grammar Girl, including This Day in Music History, as well as This Day in Tech History, because I like to know a little bit more about history. I'm a little bit fond of history, so I listen to that on Stitcher, on my favorites list. And and that's the best part is once a podcast is done, it goes to the next podcast. And if the podcast is like 2-3 weeks old, hasn't had a new one, it will skip through it. If you've already listened to it, then it'll skip over it and it'll go to the next podcast. And that's the best part. So you're not fishing through old podcasts, and when a podcast is done, you're not trying to find the next one. It just does it automatically. And that's the beautiful thing about Stitcher Internet Radio. Check it out. You know, if you go over to Stitcher.com/geek, Stitcher.com/geek, enter in your email address. You don't need to worry about the promo code. Enter in your email address. Download the software for your iPhone, for your Android, your iOS device, whether iPhone or iPad, your Android, your BlackBerry, or WebOS. Download it and put it on there. And then, of course, you're entered in for a $100 cash card over at Stitcher Internet Radio. Go over to Stitcher.com/geek to be part of that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know, I remember the day that Steve Jobs announced that they were moving away from the PowerPC processor chip for the Intel processor line. It brought a new host of programs and possibilities for the Mac computer system. The biggest one is being able to put Windows onto a Mac, either through Parallels or through Boot Camp. Now Apple seems to have the confidence and they're getting the talent to start thinking about moving away from the Intel processor for a MacBook or a Mac line and go to their own version of the processor. Of course, this isn't new. Apple's been talking about it for a while, but by creating I call it the AX chip. In this case, it's A6X. It was A5 before. They're versions of chip. But the newest version, the A6X chip, for a MacBook Pro could actually bridge the iPad with the MacBook Pro. iPhone and other iOS devices included, of course, like the Apple TV. Now, Apple Insider has dissected the A6X chip and found that's what's in the fourth generation iPad, which they announced last week. And basically, they said it's a really nice processor. It's based off the ARM V7 processor. They found it to be a dual-core processor. They found 4 graphic processors and twice the SD RAM from the A6 chip. So the benchmarks, of course, we knew the benchmarks were going to be pretty much matching the iPhone, and they did. Now, this is even more powerful than some of those $500 laptops that you see at Best Buy. So what does this topographic change mean? People who've written for PC and Mac versions, will they be able to write for a new type of processor? It will convert properly? How will that work? Will they have to support 2 versions, which they would have had to do if the Mac was still PowerPC? Does that mean that, will a program that does have both platforms, they said, we're going to write for PC and be done with it, or we're going to write for Mac and be done with it? Will it be easier for an iPad developer to actually put something on the Mac rather than anything? And will that actually enhance having an Apple device? But the more important thing is, does that hurt Intel? Because in the PC market, they basically say it's going away. I mean, the chances of people having a laptop in 5-10 years is not going to be a big thing. Desktops will be for high-end people or gamers or anything like that. Everybody else will most likely have some sort of tablet. Intel is still creating processors, and it's not like they're going to get hurt with that because there's a lot of different systems that Intel has the Intel chip in, whether it be a laptop or, of course, the upcoming Surface i5 machines. The Surface RTs have the ARM processor in them. The next version, which comes out in January, which has a full-blown version of Windows 8 on it, will have an i5 processor in it. So Intel has the possibility to even be inside of a tablet. But there's also a whole bunch of other devices that Intel's in, including CES this last year. I saw a set-top cable box that was Intel powered and looked pretty darn good. Now, the biggest problem with Apple's proprietary processors, and we saw this years ago when Sony did this, we saw this years ago when NES did this for the Nintendo operating system, they most likely will hold on to that proprietariness, and they won't let anybody use their technology. Third-party developers won't be allowed to build AX processors inside of their devices to go with your Apple device if they need a processor, because they'll want it to use this processor and go from there. So you won't be able to get some cool device because it needs a separate chip. So who will they turn to? Well, they could turn to ARM and get that ARM v7 chip. It just won't have the same instruction code as a Mac. Or they could go with an Intel chip and maybe get some cool instructions put in there and get the development going from there. I don't know. We'll see what happens. It's all up in the air, and whether Apple does it or not is yet to be seen. But the biggest thing is if they go with a AX processor inside of a MacBook Pro, what will happen with your boot camp? What will happen with your parallels? Will Windows 8 support that processor? They support an ARM processor. We already know that because that's in the Surface. But will it support the ARM processor that Apple makes inside your MacBook? And that might be a determining factor for people who buy a MacBook Pro for $1,500 to $2,000. If they can't have that Windows functionality dual booted in, like I have, maybe they don't want the MacBook anymore. Some things that Apple really needs to look at before they go making this decision. And of course, like I said, in 10 years, these things, this definitely will be obsolete. But will we even have a laptop around, or will we have a tablet with a rubber keypad and mouse, like in a Surface, or an iPad with a Bluetooth keyboard? What do you think? Do you think that that's a good idea for Apple to go into their own processor business, or will they see too many problems? Are they going in the right direction, or are they going in the wrong direction? Let me know. Twitter me at Geekazine. Of course, geekazine@gmail.com. And then, of course, the hotline is 608-205-4378. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, that is this week's episode of Geek Smack. My name is Jeffrey Powers. Thanks a lot for watching. Thanks a lot for listening. You can contact me here, like I said before. And, of course, check it out. Next week, we will not have an episode, as I'll be in Boise, Idaho, unless I have time to actually put together an episode. And then we'll do that, but most likely not. But we'll see you in 2 weeks when it will be another episode of Geek Smack. Thanks a lot for watching and listening, and we'll see you then. So you guys take care. Take care.